The screens behind Jaiwoo exploded with evidence: bank records, forged signatures, shell companies, 47 billion won stolen over 5 years, and Chairwoman Han Sook-ja's face drained of color as she realized what was happening. Own daughter, standing at the engagement party podium in front of 500 of Korea's most powerful people, had just detonated a bomb that would destroy everything. Somewhere in the back, hidden among the guests, Yuna, the daughter the chairwoman had thrown away like trash, watched their plan unfold perfectly and knew that revenge had never tasted so sweet. To understand how these two switched daughters brought down one of Korea's most ruthless business empires, we need to go back 3 months, to the night a DNA test changed everything. Jaiwoo had been celebrating. Everything was perfect until her mother collapsed in the kitchen. At the hospital, the doctor's face was grave. They ran it 3 times. Each time the answer was the same. And when the hospital checked their records from 25 years ago, they found another family who'd given birth the same night. The Han family, one of the wealthiest families in Seoul. Across the city in a penthouse that overlooked the Han River, Yuna received the same phone call. "You're not my daughter," the chairwoman interrupted. "You never were." Meanwhile, Jaiwoo was being summoned to the Han family mansion. She arrived in her best clothes, which suddenly felt shabby compared to the marble fountains and gold-trimmed gates. A butler escorted her to an office larger than her family's entire restaurant. Chairwoman Han sat behind a desk that probably cost more than Jaiwoo's entire education, her expression calculating and cold. "You're my biological daughter," the woman continued, not wasting time on pleasantries. "This situation is regrettable, but we'll make the best of it. Then I'll sue your babysitters for 25 years of expenses that should have been mine. Education, food, housing. I calculated at approximately 300 million won. Can a small restaurant afford that kind of debt?" That night, unable to sleep in the enormous mansion bedroom that felt more like a prison, Jaiwoo snuck out. She found herself at the Pajangmacha near her old neighborhood, the street food stall where she'd celebrated every achievement. "Is this seat taken?" a voice asked. Jaiwoo looked up and saw her own face staring back at her. A long moment, they just stared at each other, seeing themselves reflected in a stranger. "You're Yuna," Jaiwoo finally said. "And you're Jaiwoo, the real daughter. Hate you. You were raised by a woman who just told me my family are babysitters and threatened to destroy them if I don't obey her. How could I hate you? You were her victim too. She told me I was 25 years of wasted investment. She's offering me money to disappear and never contact her again." Locked eyes, and something shifted between them, a recognition, an understanding. "You know all her secrets, don't you?" Jaiwoo asked. 25 years worth. We could fight each other," Yuna said slowly. "That's what she expects. The real daughter versus the fake daughter. A classic revenge story. Or," Jaiwoo raised her glass, "we could fight her." For the next 2 weeks, Jaiwoo played the perfect, obedient daughter. She attended the etiquette lessons, memorized business terminology, smiled politely at her mother's criticism. What the chairwoman didn't know was that every night, after the mansion went dark, Jaiwoo would slip out to meet Yuna at various cafes and restaurants across Seoul. "Okay, the marriage to Yoon Sang-woo," Yuna explained during one of their meetings, spreading documents across the table. "I have evidence," Yuna said quietly. 3 borrowed name accounts where she's been hiding money illegally. One's under my name, which I never authorized." First, Jaiwoo brought in her brother Min Seok. When she explained the plan, he stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "You want me to investigate and expose one of the most powerful women in Korea?" "Done," Yuna said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "This is just the beginning. Give me a list of what you need and I'll get it." Next, they recruited Han Min-yi, the chairwoman's nephew. He was the chief operating officer of Shinhwa Group, brilliant and competent, but constantly overlooked because of family politics. "She threw me away because I'm not real blood," Yuna said calmly. "Sound familiar?" "She did the same to you when your father died, even though you've been running operations for 3 years while she takes credit for your successes." Min-yi studied them both. "You two are really doing this. You're actually going to take her down." "Yes," they said together. He smiled slowly. "When do we start?" The final piece was Park D-sung, Yuna's biological father. They found him working as a factory manager in Incheon. 25 years ago, I worked at Shinhwa Group as a project manager. I discovered evidence of illegal dumping that was making workers sick. When I reported it to Chairwoman Han, she fired me, blacklisted me from the industry. "Help us expose her," Yuna said. "Not for revenge, for justice." "What do you need?" he asked. Testimony about the illegal dumping, documentation if you kept any, and maybe, Yuna's voice softened, a chance to know my father. With their team assembled, the sisters launched Operation Twin. The plan was simple but brilliant. They'd use their identical appearance as a weapon. At the shareholders' meeting, Jaiwoo voted exactly as expected while the real Jaiwoo photographed documents in the penthouse safe. The charity gala, Yuna smiled for cameras while the real Yuna met with financial investigators. This is actually fun, Yuna admitted one night after a successful switch. For the first time in my life, I feel powerful. For the first time in my life, Jaiwoo countered, I feel like I have a real sister. The chairwoman had announced Jaiwoo's engagement to Yoon Sang-woo with great fanfare. 500 guests would attend, including every major business figure in Korea. Even personally designed Jaiwoo's hanbok, a gorgeous traditional dress worth millions. You'll smile, you'll bow, you'll thank me for this opportunity, the chairwoman instructed. Behind the scenes, Min Seok had been working. He dug into Director Yoon's finances and found a goldmine of corruption, embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. This goes public during the engagement party, Min Seok said. The merger becomes toxic. No board would approve it. And the chairwoman gets publicly humiliated, Yuna added. The night of the engagement party, the ballroom at the Shilla Hotel glittered with chandeliers and Korea's elite. Jaiwoo wore the expensive hanbok, Yoon Sang-woo at her side looking bored. The chairwoman circulated among guests. Accepting congratulations, her smile triumphant. Woo walked to the podium, her heart racing but her expression serene. Sang-woo followed, looking slightly confused about the schedule change. Every camera in Korea was watching. Thank you all for coming tonight, Jaiwoo began, her voice clear and steady. I'm honored to stand here as the daughter of Chairwoman Han Sook-ja and the future wife of Yoon Sang-woo. She paused, watching her mother's satisfied smile. But before we proceed, there's something everyone should know. Director Yoon, Jaiwoo turned to face him directly, would you like to explain the 47 billion won missing from Yoon Industries' accounts over the past 5 years? The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps. Behind Jaiwoo, the massive screens flickered to life. Bank transfers, forged signatures, shell companies, offshore accounts. 5 years of evidence presented in clear, undeniable detail. The chairwoman stood, her face a mask of fury barely contained. Jaiwoo, what do you think you're doing? Protecting your company, mother, Jaiwoo said calmly. The room exploded. Reporters surrounded Director Yoon, shouting questions. Business partners started leaving. Prosecutors who'd been tipped off beforehand moved in to arrest him. Through it all, the chairwoman stood frozen, publicly humiliated by the daughter she thought she controlled. Later that night, as news of the scandal spread across every media outlet in Korea, Jaiwoo met Yuna at their pajangmatcha. She's going to retaliate, Yuna said. This isn't over. I know, Jaiwoo agreed, but we're ready. The chairwoman called an emergency board meeting 3 days later, her expression carved from ice. My daughter was clearly manipulated by outside forces, she announced to the board. Chairwoman, one board member ventured carefully, the shareholders are concerned. This is the third failed major initiative this year. The stock price has dropped 12% since the engagement party. Are you questioning my leadership? The chairwoman snapped. Actually, Min-yi stood up from his seat. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence. The door opened and Yuna walked in carrying a folder. She placed it on the conference table. Those shares you gave me for my 20th birthday, Mother. You told me to sell them and invest the money elsewhere. I never did. The chairwoman's composure finally cracked. You planned this, both of you, my own daughters. We're not your daughters, Jaiwoo said quietly but firmly. Together, we control 46%, Min-yi announced. All in favor of removing Chairwoman Han Sook-ja from her position. Hands rose around the table. Security will escort you out, Min-yi said. Please surrender your company credentials and access cards. As security led her out of her own boardroom, the chairwoman's empire crumbled. The next day, Min Seok published his exposé. Every crime, every bribe, every illegal account laid out in excruciating detail. News outlets across Korea ran the story. Prosecutors raided Shinhwa Group headquarters. Chairwoman Han Sook-ja was arrested within a week, charged with embezzlement, tax evasion, bribery, and a dozen other crimes. Her trial would be long and public. 3 months later, Min-yi had settled into his role as CEO of a reformed Shinhwa Group. Jaiwoo and Yuna served on the board of directors, equal partners in rebuilding the company's reputation. You're both changing your legal names. The lawyer asked, confused. From Han to Kang? The Kang family restaurant, which had nearly been destroyed by the chairwoman's threats, received a substantial investment from both daughters. It expanded into a successful chain. 6 months after the engagement party that shook Korea's business world, Jae-woo and Yuna sat at their pajangmatcha, the street food stall where they'd first become allies. And when two daughters stand together, Yuna raised her glass higher, even the most powerful woman in Korea doesn't stand a chance. They drank, they laughed, and they planned their futures. So if you enjoyed this story of switched daughters who refused to fight and instead became the most powerful alliance their mother ever faced, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more revenge stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Drop a comment below and tell us, would you have fought each other or teamed up? And most importantly, what would you have done differently? Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the best family is the one you choose, not the one you're born into.